second plenary session focusing on integrity. So our keynote speaker will be Dr. Liqiu Meng, and we also have three panelists, Nadine Alame, who will be joining us virtually, and two other panelists are Dr. David Paget and Dr. Bo Zhou. Both are here on site. So let's start it with our keynote speaker, Dr. Liqiu Meng. I will take the pleasure to, to quickly give you a very brief introduction of her. Dr. Liqiu Meng is a professor of cartography at the Technical University of Munich, Germany. She obtained her doctorate degree in geodetic engineering at Hanover University, Germany in 1993. She worked as a faculty member at both Gävle University and the Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden. That was very brief, like 5 years, and then she took up the chair professorship at TUM, that's Technical University of Munich, in 1998. She later served as a senior vice president of TUM during the period of 2008 and 2014. She initiated the International Master's Program in Cartography in 2011, which is jointly run by TUM and also Technical University of Vienna, Technical University of Dresden, and University Twente. It's truly international. Her recent research interests include geodata integration, multimodal navigation algorithms, high-definition mapping, map-based open portal for climate events, and ethical issues in cartography. Dr. Meng is a member of the German National Academy of Sciences, served as senator in the Helmholtz Association of German Research Centers and deputy chairperson in the Senate of German Aerospace Center. She currently serves as vice president of the International Cartographic Association and is responsible for the new research agenda. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Meng for the keynote speak.
Thank you, Angela, for your introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I feel very honored to be assigned this topic. I would like to reflect on it from the perspective of my international cartographic research team at a German university. We all know that there is a great need for efficient and trustworthy bridge between the thickening heterogeneous data on the one side and the thickening diverse users on the other. And mapping plays such a good role. In fact, wherever you go, whatever you do, maps are right here waiting for you. As a lucky person, I have received professional cartographic education at various schools. During my undergraduate and graduate studies in China, my teachers provided me a wonderful cocktail of universal cartographic principles. In 2007, during the ICC in Moscow, I discovered this sample map. It is a proportional symbol map. In comparison to, I discovered this map from a building of the Moscow State University of Geodesy and Cartography. In comparison to the right side sample from a Swiss atlas, I would say both follow the same design principle, but turned this principle into a pleasant look just by simply adding an artistic subtlety. Less fun with regarding integrity issues. I started to be confused, for instance, already as undergrad student, when I noticed that different countries adopted different code of professional conduct to deal with confidential information displayed in large-scale topographic maps. Country A would try to derive a demo version for public access, but actually useless, by twisting the landscape or mirroring the landscape so that all features, including labels, are displaced. Country B would try to derive another version by simply making those sensitive features invisible. Maybe in different contexts, they are all reasonable, diplomatic, or for the national defense purposes, they are reasonable, but they are cheating. Yeah. In order to avoid this kind of integrity dilemma, I decided to work on research topics for which there are crisp technical solutions. So here you see 4 of my research topics with my team at Technical University Munich. All of them are strongly technology oriented. Surprisingly, the deeper the research goes, the more likely we are troubled by integrity issues. So now I would like to walk you through these 4 selected research topics and share with you what kind of integrity concerns are involved and which empirical approaches we have. Research focus number 1, geospatial data integration. It is a long-standing research focus since more than 20 years through a series of PhD or third-party funded projects. We tried various types of data integration with focus on road network integration, for instance, between satellite images or a vector database, or between different vector databases by different providers or different transportation modalities, or integrating even deeply learned road network from GPS trajectories. And our toolbox is getting larger and larger. The list of algorithms is getting longer and longer. Likewise, the quality indicators are extended stepwise. And interestingly, to notice that it is being extended from initially purely performance-oriented indicators to performance plus integrity indicators. The integrity issues involved in spatial data integration multifold. First of all, we noticed that none of the data sources to be integrated is ground truth. No wonder the integrated results couldn't be ground truth either. And then we noticed that semantic information is very sparsely available and unevenly distributed. And therefore, we don't have agreeable strategy on how to make use of semantic information. If we want to prioritize the robustness of algorithms, then we have to start from the worst case scenarios by ignoring all kinds of semantic information. But if the computing efficiency matters, we need to start from the best case situation. So by regarding all kinds of available semantic information. And our integration results are not replicable due to a lack of shared infrastructure. That is a forever question by reviewers of our journal publications. Because sometimes due to manual adjustment of parameter settings or data pre-processing, then our results couldn't be reproduced, even if we are very honest. And uncertainty, especially uncertainty of semantic, is very difficult to define due to lack of benchmarks, and then difficult to measure and visualize. Nevertheless, we try to make some efforts to improve algorithmic and process transparency wherever possible in our system. For instance, by adding explanations to parameter settings, including value ranges, and by adding also explanations to what for which algorithm is good and where it could cause side effects to users. And we also want to trace user interactions in order to know what kind of changes have been made. And likewise, we want to make our responses to user feedback traceable. With regard to uncertainty, we developed a interactive prototype system by embedding uncertainty grid-wise using different sizes of circle, like in this case in land cover classes created from multiple data sources. In this way, we hope the system could invite users to spot where there are hotspots of a so-called uncertainty area so that they can use their domain knowledge, their new evidences, and reasoning ability to improve the certainty. Research focus number 2 is related to linked geospatial data. Recent years, we know that the remote sensing data is being increasingly flanked by increasing social sensing data. This has opened up a new space of knowledge and forces us to think ontologically, because in the holistic knowledge space, there is far more semantic information available than ever before. Particularly, this holistic knowledge space would allow us to access to dynamic relationships, any kind of relationships in which a lot of events, dynamic events or interest events are embedded. However, we are sort of brainwashed in GIS education with layered thinking, which is still dominating. It is intuitive and straightforward to structure complex context or world into different layers or thematic layers. However, we know that slicing of the boundless geospatial knowledge is artificial. Similar to slicing of time into snapshots, we will inevitably miss a lot of cross-layer knowledge or knowledge beyond space. And what exists in layered thinking is limited knowledge for well-defined problems, but most of grand topics are ill-defined or wicked problems. And different themes evolve at different paces. It's very hard using layered thinking to manage inconsistencies between these layers. Yeah, most important is that we lack semantic associations across and beyond layers. So my team started to change from layered to linked thinking in an ongoing project financed by German National Science Foundation. We try to project CityGML from a number of selected scenarios onto a geographic virtual knowledge graph for the purpose of consistent geodata management. And knowledge graph has a good advantage because it is explainable, quite straightforward for people to understand. This could allow us to do visual analytics and to detect dense and deep knowledge buried in knowledge graph, which we usually overlook. Another worth mentioning experiment is about semantic enrichment and of open source data with high precision remote sensing data, especially geometry information. So far, open source data are still quite marginalized and regarded as a kind of nice to have support to authoritative and a structured, organized remote sensing data or mapping data. We want to do the opposite by replacing or enriching missing semantic attributes in OpenStreet maps, especially building heights and high precision building heights, which could be derived automatically from remote sensing image. We hope to have a professional uplift of OpenStreetMap. In this way, we believe we can encourage citizen scientists to contribute more valuable, more meaningful semantic information, leading to better quality of open source data. Our research focus number 3, user-centered design, which is again, a very long-standing cartographic endeavor in global comparison. Since at least 2 decades, my team has been trying to design various kinds of mobile maps which should be adapted to user needs and user behavior, like moving speeds and their current tasks. And we believe that the more we understand users, the better we can provide customized cartography services. But also in this research focus, we encounter a number of integrity concerns. First of all, user-centered design couldn't be inclusive. Yeah? If one service fits a personalized customer, another customer might misunderstand it as misleading or discriminating. And we also notice that what users really want, intrinsic needs, is different from what they potentially need. Yeah? And also when the design process is kept opaque, then the designers have their possibilities to manipulate on behalf of user-centeredness. Yeah? This is, again, a possible ethical flaw. And sometimes we notice that in our services, we provide something that users dislike. We didn't exclude that kind of information. Again, ethical flaw. And not all user needs are to be encouraged, especially user needs which are not healthy or leading to unhealthy behavior. And finally, we notice with increasing efficiency of service, especially navigation services, the spatial thinking ability could decline. How should we tackle that? I myself have experienced my gradual improvement of awareness of truly user-centered design. 20 years ago, with our team, we believe that we should design our services according to a strategy of what you see is what you want. We involve users in the final stage of evaluation of our services, and soon we discovered that we are providing often more than what users need. And this could trigger some of their extrinsic needs, and some of which might be not healthy needs. So I found myself wrong, and I need to change the strategy from what you see is what you want to what you want is what you see, by involving users right in the beginning of our design loop, so that we really provide what they intrinsically need. And I proudly presented this idea in 2004 at the third International Geoscience Conference in Maryland. But soon I found myself wrong again, because if we blindly satisfy users' needs, we might encourage some of their needs which could lead to unhealthy behavior. So it's our duty as designer to nudge users toward healthy needs and healthy behavior. So that's our current design principle. What you want and is good is what you see. Hopefully, this principle will stay for a while valid. And in terms of nudging can also sometimes have side effects. For instance, we found that there are so many pedestrian routes recommendations provided by commercial providers or open source routing machines. And all these recommendations may follow certain optimization criteria, like maximum clean area, best physical exercise, and so on. But nevertheless, we found out that the open source routing machines usually provide actually the best optimal routes. Why? Is that due to incompleteness of data by commercial provider, or is there some profit-driven nudging effect involved? We don't know. What we can do is to show all these options to users so that we can stimulate their critical thinking about data sources and possible problematic ranking criteria by commercial providers. Another worth mentioning experiment is about the design of different mixed reality-based symbols with which we try to improve, on the one hand, the indoor navigation efficiency, and at the same time, we don't want that users' spatial thinking skills decline. And it is possible in different options, we can always find one option which could provide a good balance. The research focus number 4, map-based storytelling. Storytelling is not new, but it's revitalized in the burgeoning data science and artificial intelligence. So we did some preliminary study, for instance, try to categorize the famous Paul mode collection with 800 persuasive maps so that we can get some insights into the design rules or design principles of these story maps in terms of annotation, color association, comics, and so on. And we firmly believe map-based storytelling is quite exciting because it will inject different personal perspectives, including conflicting value systems and their emotions as well as lives into map, making the reading far more interesting and entertaining than banal cartographer principles. Nevertheless, yeah, of course, here is an example. No one would stay untouched by visually appealing good map design, although the aesthetic values and the local flavors are not objectively measurable, but they reflect the changing relations between the world and the designer and between the map and the viewer. So be it European nations' iconic artwork or peace-loving Chinese people. Look, the lotus flower. I'm also a peace-loving person. It's artistically very pleasant. But of course, map-based story map involve a lot of integrity concerns. Those values like journalistic persuasion, subjective perspective, emotional design, and so on. They all seem to contradict what we learned from normative mapping, like map-centered, objective, emotionless, professional, authoritative, and trustworthy. And especially in a time when news maps have very notorious reputations, driven by the business model, bad news is good news, fake news is better than no news at all. These concerns are more serious and challenging us whether we should adopt this kind of design. My team decided to take map-based or treat map-based storytelling as a creative lie that helps users realize better truth and infer future possibilities. And we conducted some preliminary studies of so-called data-driven mining of storytelling principles. Only when we know how those story maps are designed, we can better counteract possible biases or ethical concerns. So according to our preliminary study of 5 selected newsrooms from USA, Europe, and Asia with about 2,200 story maps, we are able to categorize them into different design principles. One of the interesting findings is that in USA and Europe, journalists tend to grab easy-to-use open source tools. They are making boring maps, less diverse maps from their Asia colleagues. Yeah, it is quite a problematic trend. But anyway, storytelling maps are very interesting and can draw attention of a lot of different target groups. Therefore, we want to include storytelling map as genre of cartographic design and continue. All these ongoing research focuses in my team have revealed the omnipresent issue of integrity. We can't avoid it. We can only face it. But we have a tougher challenge. Early on, cartographers could simply follow a sequential value chain by quality assure every step so that we can prevent errors and noises from propagating. But now with the incremental data streaming and processing, the sequential value chain has become networked value loop. At any node or edge, we have some untraceable user contributions from professionals or participatory users. And therefore, we face a much tougher challenge of spotting and mitigating biases in each value loop. Usually, we can adopt so-called norm-based approach to harness integrity concerns with help of code of integrity, professional conduct rules and standards, and so on. It is able to define ethical framework within which we are expected to act. Violation or misconduct will be accordingly punished or discovered and punished. But this kind of norm-based approach emphasizes extrinsic incentives, and therefore with some restraining effect. The longer the list of rules and standards, the narrower our design space. In the worst case, the innovation and the creativity which are required to break laws will be largely inhibited. On this note, we need to consult our hearts using additional value-based approach, which emphasizes enforcement with best practices, role models, and culture of trust, especially education with conscious learning of good habits and conscious unlearning of bad habits. This emphasis on intrinsic motivation and could be universally actionable. So we believe the combination both, they already share a joint part, but they are different complementary approaches. And we know that human mind is incredibly biased. And there is a taxonomy of about 154 cognitive biases based on survey literature, visualization, and computer graphic. And they can be organized according to task categories or flavors. I tried myself to look into those individual cognitive biases because here each dot represents one bias. And then I got a feeling I'm living like in a minefield and wrong most of the time. Here are some examples. Cartographers or computer graphic designers tend to provide so-called progressive rendering so that users don't have to wait a couple of minutes till the large data amount is uploaded or downloaded. But users tend to infer for the whole data set that the distributional pattern based on the initial part. This might be wrong, or they can miss, for instance, some peak. Likewise, if we show users infection, let's say, with initial part, they tend to infer the overall distribution will be a linear distribution, but it's obviously not true. So there are so many biases involved. And if we know these biases, then we can take measures to counteract. Another example, very famous for us cartographers, if we are giving for two anonymous themes, color place map, and based on theme, maybe we try to figure out whether between these two themes there is some negative correlation. But if we replace these two themes by crime and income, our bias will immediately jump in, guide us to see based on our believing, so that we see much stronger negative correlation. This is a typical confirmation bias. Another example shows us a same quantity could be arranged in so many different ways, but due to perceptual biases, we can't accurately judge quantities in some of arrangements. Yet another example, typically used as interactive tools for header planning and statistics, showing how noise might blur trends of, for instance, a stagnation trend and a growing trend. With increasing noise level, both trends could be blurred till in the end, we may hallucinate some patterns which do not exist. Being inspired by this kind of survey, and my team decided we just launched another project financed by DFG, which is about a geospatial analytical platform for guided learning. With data sets for selected scenarios like pandemic or climate change, we want to give a try to check how far some of the learning strategies could help us, different stakeholders, to unlearn a sequence of selected popular cognitive biases. And we are designing a set of experiments, and by giving benchmark solutions, want to check whether without unlearning and with unlearning, user behavior could be more or less changed. Our aim with unlearning is to improve the transparency of visual analytical processes as far as possible, and we want to allow a systemic understanding of various kinds of cognitive biases occurring in different nodes or edges of knowledge graph. And of course, we want to build capacity of critical reasoning of involved stakeholders, be it citizens or decision makers or system designers. Finally, I want to share a number of messages with you. First of all, we know that cartographers are good at creating interface between thick data and thick users. Therefore, we can take an overarching responsibility for integrity, which is a joint concern among geodata providers, system developers, and map designers and target users. And we believe that a combination of norm-based approach with value-based approach, I mean with emphasis of conscious learning and unlearning, could help us better promote sustainable and actionable integrity. And finally, last but not least, as long as there are multiple mapping solutions, which is often the case, in terms of design to a geospatial problem, it is always possible for us to identify a more ethical one, because map design carries a dual value, the value of underlying data and the value of the design. This reminds me of a fable between a boy and his grandma. The boy and grandma were watching two wolves, one good and one evil, fighting against each other. The grandma turned to the boy. "Hey, my dear, in your heart, there are also two wolves, one good, one evil, fighting against each other. Which one will finally win?" The boy asked curiously. "The one you feed, and you feed over and over again," answered the grandma. Thank you for your attention. This is my team.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Meng, for the super interesting talk. We will have time to ask questions, but please let us continue with the panelists' presentations. After that, we'll have time you want to ask a question, could you hold for maybe 30 minutes or so? Then we have time to ask.